And welcome in. I'm Stan the Fan from Pressbox, along with Ross Grimsley, former Oriole big league pitcher. And on with us is one of the truly great Baltimore Oriole players, one of my favorite players, played with the ball club for 10 years, and that's number 29, Kenny Singleton. Kenny, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Stan. I hope everybody else is well. I hope you're doing well, and everybody back in Baltimore, be safe.
Well, we're trying to be safe, and Ross has been kind enough to work with me on these, and we're doing them once a week, trying to
Hmm.
talk to some old Orioles, and I don't mean literally age-wise, but you guys, I wanted to start off with something that we should have talked about last week. Kenny, what do you remember about the farewell to Memorial Stadium that Charles Steinberg and the ball club helped arrange? How special was that for you?
It was very well done. Charles Steinberg has done various jobs for other teams as well. He did a nice thing with the Boston Red Sox, and what I remember is that I was there on Saturday, and but I couldn't be there Sunday. I had to get back to Pittsburgh and do the final game of the season. I was doing Expos games at the time, so I had to leave, and I missed that final where everybody ran out on the field. But I saw it, and it was just a beautiful send off to Memorial Stadium. Mike Flanagan, of course, I think he pitched that day or threw the last
He
pitch.
threw the last pitch. Yep. Yep.
Memorial Stadium, and it was just you hated to see the stadium go, but the thing about it, Stan, all the cities now have new stadiums, and they're all beautiful, and they certainly much better for the fans. And I just think it was a mark of progress. That's all.
Hey, Ross, you were there.
Oh yeah,
I've never really talked to you about it. How special was it for you?
yeah. It was amazing all to see everybody back again. I thought, and I just when everybody ran on the field one at a time, that was and the music. That was just it just had a lump in your throat, and it was just really exciting to see everybody, and just brought back a lot of memories. And it was a very special day, yeah, at that time in the clubhouse with everybody getting dressed, getting ready, and just shooting the bull about things that happened in the past. And it was just a very special time.
Well, let's talk a little bit about something else that was pretty special. Kenny, you and Ross Grimsley played for a few years up in Montreal, and never really talked to you about that too much. First of all, how much did you enjoy playing in Montreal? Was it a bummer when you got traded from the Mets to the Expos in the Rusty Staub trade? And what did you think of it? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, Stan, those are good questions. I was kind of down. The Mets were the team. I grew up watching it. I grew up in New York, and to play on your hometown team is really special. And then to get traded, I got traded during the end of spring training. The season was about to start, and I got traded to the Expos. I remember going home. It was the day of Gil Hodges' funeral, and I went to the funeral, and I was informed that I had been traded. I came home, and I told my mom that I had been traded to Montreal. She started crying. She said, "We'll never see him play again," all that. And of course, it isn't like now that you can watch every game anytime you want on if you have an iPad or any device, you can watch any game. It wasn't like that then. And my mom was really concerned she wouldn't get a chance to see me. My dad was more practical. My dad said, this is going to be a good thing. He's going to go to Montreal. He's going to get a chance to play every single day, and we're going to find out what type of ball player he is. Well, I had some good years in Montreal.
Yes,
and
you
then
did.
You did.
on the radar of the Orioles, and then I got the break of my career by getting traded to Baltimore.
One more question, and then I'll let Ross follow up. But when you went to Montreal, you were traded for the most popular player in Expo franchise history at that time, Le Grand Orange. How tough was that replacing a legend in Montreal?
Well, I was fortunate. There were three of us traded for him, three young players, Tim Foley, Mike Jorgensen, and myself. And you're right. The fans weren't happy with that deal until they figured out that whenever we did win a game up there, usually one of the three of us had something to do with it. So they figured that getting three players for Rusty wasn't such a bad thing, especially after my second year. when I drove in over 100 runs, the first Expo to drive in 100 runs. And I scored 100 that year, hit 300, led the league in on-base percentage, hit a home run off Ross Grimsley.
I've already told him the story.
That was a 5-run. Was that a 5-run home run?
Yeah, I think there were 6 men on base.
Yeah, I told him that story, and I told him what I got the frame and the game in the picture for you. So that was
that home run was never been, and I'll tell you why. Because I was hitting, and it started to rain up at Jerry Park. There was no roof on the stadium. There was no Olympic Stadium at the time. And Ross had gone, I don't know, about 4 innings or so. And there was a lengthy rain delay. It was at least an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And they sent him back out there. Nowadays, that would never happen.
No.
So I was the hitter at the time. And I think one of the first few pitches Ross threw, I hit for a home run. And he stayed in the game, and they won. You know, they had all the Hall of Famers on the Cincinnati Reds and future Hall of Famers, and they won the game. And Ross got the win. And I think it was Mike Torres took the loss. I think it was Mike.
It might have been. I couldn't tell you, but yeah, that was well, they had a lot of money invested in me. They had about $6,000-7,000, so they're going to get their money for it.
And let me just go ahead.
I picked to go there. I was a free agent and went to Montreal, and because I like the cold weather. Now, it's one of the things that as a hitter, hitters don't usually like cold weather, and that was the beginning in 1978 of the young players. Dawson, Cromartie, Gary Carter was there, Tony Perez were there. So they had the nucleus of having a really good team. That was one of the reasons I went there. Plus, they gave me a 6-year contract. But that was very special. The weather was really cold. And,
oh my goodness!
That was amazing. But it was a lot of fun. We had a good time up there and met a lot of great people and had a lot of fun.
If you're a player and you didn't like cold weather, that's not the place to go. I can remember playing one night, and I'm playing the outfield, and it looks like it's raining. But when I looked up at the lights, I said to myself, "That's not rain. It's snow coming." And the reason I remember it because it was June the 9th. My birthday was the next day.
And it was snowing. And
yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, anyway, see, we were talking about me and Stan, talking about your on-base percentage. And we looked at it. It was always very high. Even in your minor league seasons in your minor league, your on-base percentage was very good. I mean, as a switch hitter, was that good for you, or was that bad for you? Was it tough? I know you seemed to have more power left-handed than you did right-handed, but how did that affect your on-base percentage?
Well, the thing about it, Ross, when I went up to hit, my first year in the minor leagues, I led the league in base on balls. And I've always felt that the pitch was actually too hard to hit and swing at. It was probably going to be a ball. And it's hard enough to hit the strike. So why are you going to swing it out of the strike zone? And the whole thing is a hitter, and you know this too, for a hitter, you want to get ahead on the counts. Right. You want to be 2-0 and 3-1. That way the pitcher has more chance to throw the ball towards the middle of the plate, and you got a chance to do some real damage. Back in the day when I told you I led the league, National League, in 73 in on-base percentage, it wasn't even a negotiating point in my next contract because nobody knew what on-base percentage was. But when I came to Baltimore, Earl Weaver knew what it was. Yeah. Even though I didn't really publicize that much. In my first year that I got to Baltimore, Earl told me, "You're going to lead off." And I said, "What?" I had never led off a game in my life. And I said, "Earl, I don't steal bases." He said, "That's not what it's about." He said, "It's getting on base." So that year, I walked 118 times. It's still the Orioles record for a season. And my very first time up in Detroit, opening day, I walked my first time up. Joe Coleman was pitching. Yeah. I went to third on a hit by Tommy Davis, and I scored on a 3-run home run by Lee May. And right away in the first inning, we were up 3-0. It was Lee May's first home run, first at bat in the American League, get a homer. So I'm the first one back to the dugout. and I walk in, and Earl points his finger in my chest, says, "That's what the hell I'm talking about."
That's Weave. Hey,
That's Weave. He
let me
says,
ask you another question. Now, you didn't strike out a whole lot, but you only struck out 100 times, what, twice, two seasons. Both those seasons, one season you hit 35 home runs, the other one you hit 24. Now, mostly guys that hit a lot of home runs will strike out. You're not a strikeout guy. So what was the idea of the 35 home runs that year? And did you do something different, or what was your approach?
I started hitting home runs early in the season. I kind of liked it. So I started to go for it, and I ended up striking out more. So that was my most home runs ever hit, most RBIs ever hit. It was also the most strikeouts ever had in the season. But it was an all-star season. We had a good year. And the other year, I struck out. I finished second in the MVP that year. And the other year, I struck out over 100 times. I finished third in the MVP.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're right. I wasn't really I could hit home runs, but I was looking to get on base. I remember when Eddie was on the team and he was a young player, and his first year, Earl batted him fifth. But the next year, he moved him up to fourth. And Earl called me in the office and said, "Look, I'm going to move the kid up to fourth in the batting order this year." He says, "Your job's not going to change." He says, "Either you hit a home run or get on base. That's all I want you to do." And that's what I did. I listened to him, and I got on base over 40% of the time, and I hit a few home runs too. So,
well, you ended your career with a 388 on base percentage, and you had several years over 400. Would you? And I don't want to give the late Earl Weaver, too much credit, but are you saying he kind of opened your eyes to the importance of just getting on base, or would you have done the same thing had he not pointed you in that direction?
No, I would have been the same type of hitter because I'd already done that in Montreal. But the thing, and I'd already done it in the minor leagues. Ross was talking about my minor league records. I think every year I played in the minor leagues, I led the league in on base percentage. Every year.
Right.
That, to me, if you do that nowadays, that's worth millions of dollars. I mean, millions upon millions. That's what it's worth if you can lead the league in on-base percentage or be up near in the top 3 or 5 every year. And basically, that's what I was doing. Although, nowadays, you have guys like Mike Trout, who to me, he's one of the guys I would pay to see. He's by far, to me, the best player going right now. I just wish, he wasn't on the West Coast so more people could see him. I mean, most of the country's sleeping when he's playing. So I just, whenever the Yankees go out there or when he comes to the East Coast, or whether I'm watching the Yankees or the Orioles, I just admired him. And he's a good kid, too. I mean, he's great. I've really enjoyed talking to him the few times that I have in the past.
Hey, Singy, before we move on to another topic, I did want to just bounce back to Montreal for just a second. I wanted to get both your and Ross' opinion on how well suited do you think today's Montreal is. Now, this pandemic and the cost it's put in terms of the economics of baseball could delay expansion even further. But there was talk about some Montreal being fast-tracked to either get an expansion team or split the home games with the Tampa Bay Rays. Do you think Montreal is deserving of another chance?
Ross, you want to answer first?
Well, I mean, I went up there last year for the exhibition game with the Brewers. They drew over 25,000 people for both games. They have a fan base. They have money that are backing them. Charles Brockman's son is running that, and a lot of people, a lot of interest. Now, talking about splitting it, playing half in Tampa, half in Montreal. There's a lot of things that go into that. Would really the logistics make it really tough to do.
Yeah.
So I just think they're talking about expansion. I don't know if other teams are ahead of them, but Sing, you might know a little bit better than I do. But it just looks like there's so many things, especially now with what's going on now. Obviously, it'd be very tough. They don't even know if they're going to play this year, but yeah, it'd be really tough.
Yeah, I think it would be splitting this between the two cities to me is be really rough. I don't even know if the Players Association would support. But I do think, in a way, if they can figure out and get the stadium done down here at Tampa Bay, then they can concentrate on expansion, and it might come quicker because the owners have lost a lot of revenue because of the pandemic. So quick revenue would be to put 2 expansion teams in with expansion fees of over $1 billion.
Right.
It's going to cost to get into the league now. It's going to be over $1 billion just to get into the league, and then you have players and whatever. Make sure you got your stadiums ready.
They have to have a new stadium up there.
Yeah.
Montreal does have a stadium where they can play in until they build a new one. That's a good point in their favor. Maybe some of the other cities don't have that, but Montreal does have it. And Stan, I do think eventually Montreal is going to get another team. And because these expansion fees are so high now, and the other owners could split it all up.
I think you're right on the money. And, it's interesting. I looked at the pandemic from how much damage it's done, but you're right. The real way they're going to look at it is, hey, if we can split $2 billion for 2 expansion teams, that is a good way to go. Hey, I wanted to ask you a more general today baseball question, Kenny, before we finish this up and get your opinion on what a 2020 season could look like. I wanted to ask you a question about Joe Girardi, who I've respected from afar for a good while. And I remember when Andy MacPhail took over as sort of the baseball man for the Orioles about 12, 14 years ago. The first thing he did was he fired the existing manager, Sam Perlazzo, and they ended up replacing him with Dave Tremblay. But right around that time, Andy went out to Chicago to talk to Joe Girardi, who had been let go by the Marlins, and he opted to not get into a rebuilding. I think he put it off when his dad was very sick. But he was the Yankee manager for a long time. Do you think this is one of those cases where this is the best thing for both Joe Girardi and the Yankees, that he was let go? Did it catch you totally by surprise?
In a way, at first it did, but then when I saw some of the reasons why they did it, I think he wasn't getting along with Gary Sanchez. They thought that he maybe didn't get along with the younger players, and the Yankees were getting younger at that time. You Judge coming along, eventually guys like Gleyber Torres, and basically they're a solid young team. The Yankees, the bill is coming for them. A lot of these guys haven't reached their arbitration or certainly free agency numbers status yet, and eventually the Yankees are going to have to pay big time, but they can afford to do it. They will keep this team together. The thing about it too is with Girardi, I think he was waiting for the right opportunity. I don't think he wanted to go through the rebuild with the Orioles. I know he liked the Cubs situation, but the Cubs got Joe Madden, and that was out the window. And he bided his time with the Major League Baseball Network doing some TV, and eventually the Phillies job came along. The Phillies have a good team. They're one of the organizations, and I think they're a threat in the National League East. Although I don't know if you're going to see the configuration of teams like that.
No. Well, but before we ask you your thoughts on the 2020 season, hopefully coming up, I got to say hi to a guy, Dave Jones. Dave Jones is a lifetime Oriole fan. He hasn't missed a Oriole home opener since Camden Yards was built. He's diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. He's going through some tough times now. So hopefully there'll be some baseball this year, and he can root the Orioles on. So our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family, and hope that works out.
We wish him a very happy birthday, and we hope there is some baseball for him to watch in the not too distant future. And to wrap this up, Kenny, both Ross and I want to get your opinion on whether you think there'll be a 2020 season. I saw a tweet earlier today by Trevor Plouffe, who must be doing talk radio in the Twin Cities. And his tweet was, hey, finally some good news. We're going to start spring training June 2nd and the season's going to start July the 10th or something like that. I haven't seen anything of any credibility about that report. What do you think is going on right now?
You know, I think they are thinking over different scenarios, and you've seen a few already, like playing in the spring training sites. I don't think they're going to do that. They're talking about going to Japan, taking everybody to Japan, playing there. That's not going to happen. And I saw that, what you mentioned by Trevor Plouffe today, and that's been discarded. That's not true.
Yeah.
They said that's true. So that's not going to happen either, although, it raised some false hope. Now, what I do understand, the latest proposal has, and it maybe has some legitimacy, where the teams in the eastern part of the country, no matter what league you're in, would all be in one division. Teams in the central part would all be in one division, and teams out west, and it'd be 10, 10, and 10. And to me, that kind of makes a little sense because the travel wouldn't be quite as bad. I mean, the Yankees do take the train to Baltimore and vice versa. They go back from time to time. They could do that from Philly. They would play the Mets. They could take the train to Boston. The only two cities, or they could take the train to Washington from New York. The only two cities that you have to get on a plane would be Tampa Bay and Miami, and probably Pittsburgh. So it would be interesting if they do that. And Stan, if they do that sort of thing, to me, this would be the year to experiment with all kinds of stuff. You know, that you could, extra inning game, start a guy on second base in the extra innings. Just see to get the games over faster. They talked about the relievers facing at least 3 batters. Things like that. Or maybe even if you want to go even further, you get up in the late innings, you can have your best hitter hit any time to try and get a game over. Just for this year, just to make, bring the fans into it, get them all involved, take some fans' ideas. And, it's going to be a shortened season anyway.
Sure.
I think there 14 teams qualify for the playoffs, so they could make the end of the year, and maybe, hopefully by that time, maybe they can let some fans in the stands. If not, TV ratings are going to be through the roof. And, it might be time to ask for a raise. I don't know.
Ross,
are you retiring again?
Ross, I was thinking that this was going to be my last year, but I can't go out like this. If they want me back next year, and my boss loves me, so probably so. The thing about it is, it kind of reminded me the year that Mariano was going to retire, Mariano Rivera, he tore his ACL in Kansas City shagging fly balls, if you remember correctly.
Yeah.
And he had to have surgery, of course, to fix his ACL, and he said, I can't go out like this. So he came back one more year. And not to say it's anything like that, but to me, I get the same sort of feeling. I want to have a full year.
Right.
I want everybody to be safe, where fans could sit in the ballpark again and not worry about who you're sitting next to, unless, it's a fan of the other team. and just have a good time and get as close to normal as we can, because, this is tough on a lot of people. We've seen a lot of people who were here a few months ago, they're not here anymore. And I'm sure a lot of them were baseball fans, and that's not good.
Ross, you got a final question for Kenny before we let him go?
Wait, you're not golfing, are you?
You know what? The golf courses in Florida have been open the whole time. And, my wife Suzanne and I decided to stay down here at the house here. But we're coming back pretty soon to Baltimore. But I wanted Ross to make sure he put pressure on the Governor Hogan to get the golf courses open.
Really?
Still be able to play when I come back, because I know they're closed now.
Ross is very tight with the governor.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Ross knows that I decided to, just stay cool like everybody else and just chill out at home. We get our groceries delivered, things like that. And we only go out if we have to.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I want everybody to be safe. I hope when I get back there, I can give both of you guys a big hug when I see you. That's what I hope.
All right. Kenny Singleton, former Oriole great in the Orioles Hall of Fame, 10 years with the ball club. We thank you for coming on. Ross, as always, I thank you. Remind you, Press Box has presented this We're still featuring the Glenn Clark Show Monday through Friday from 10 to 12 at pressboxonline.com/radio, or to watch it on Facebook, go to facebook.com/pressboxsports. I'll be on Wednesday night with Gary Stein. Again, our thanks to Ken Singleton, Ross Grimsley. We are out.
Thanks, Ziggy.
Okay, guys. Be safe, you guys.
Thank you.
All right.